You're listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me today are Jeff Ranke and Anna Wells. We each have more than 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Every week, we take the 5 most popular stories on our websites and discuss the implications they have on the industry going forward. All right, before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at in.com with email the podcast in the subject line. Also, we're live every Friday at about 1:30. We're a little early today, and if you caught it, you saw a spectacular start, didn't you, Jeff?
Absolutely. Let's blame it on the fact that we're experiencing spring here in southeastern Wisconsin like 2 days at a time, and today we're actually above 50 degrees. So maybe it's just all of those good spring feelings just overflowing and distracting you a
lot of energy
on the open there.
Yeah, it hasn't rained or snowed in like 4 hours, so it's good. It's good. Anna, how you doing this week?
I'm fine. How are you doing this week, David?
I'm doing better. Clearly, I'm excited to run into that weekend. We're just like, is it over yet? Nope, just getting started. Can't actually start it.
We'll get this show on the road.
Yeah. I also want to send a special shout out to Matthew. Thanks a lot for reaching out and the kind words about the podcast. Thanks for supporting the podcast. All right. Before we get started, we have a word from our sponsor.
Oil Eater's household cleaners, industrial cleaners, and industrial equipment are specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used throughout the world. Our safe water-based formula dissolves grease and grime for almost any surface and leaves a fresh, non-chemical scent. Our ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used on shop floors, in parts washers, to clean equipment, and more. VOC compliant, Oil Eater will do an excellent job in a multitude of applications, safely and cost-effectively, while reducing your chemical usage. Safe for the user, safe for the surfaces being cleaned, and safe for the environment. For more information, visit oileater.com or call 800-528-0334.
All right, and we're back. And just a special reminder for our podcast listeners to click the link below to get a free sample of Oil Eater. All right, our first story this week. Boeing CEO laments Air Force One deal. In February 2018, Boeing and President Trump struck a deal. They agreed to a $3.9 billion fixed-price contract to make 2 Air Force One jets. This week, Boeing CEO David Calhoun had a bit of seller's remorse. Calhoun said, quote, "It was a public negotiation and we took some risks when the company accepted the fixed-price contract. That means Boeing is on the hook for any overruns as they convert the Boeing 747 jumbo jets into presidential planes." He called it, quote, "a very unique moment, a very unique negotiation, a very unique set of risks that Boeing probably should not have taken, but we are where we are, and we're going to deliver great airplanes." Calhoun says he doesn't want any more fixed-price contracts. Now, I'm trying to read between the lines here, Jeff, and it sounds like he is unhappy with this and maybe felt a little strong-armed into it.
In a real shocking tactic here, a CEO blames a bad quarter on his predecessor. That's a bad deal.
Never seen it.
No one's ever done that before. Said any child who's ever had an older sibling, like it was their fault, basically. No, it was not a smart deal from Boeing's perspective. Nobody enters into a fixed price contract. What they try to do with these deals is a fixed rate contract with incentives for the supplier to meet certain deadlines and cost controls and things like that. That's sort of something that, I don't know, somebody like Boeing, who's handled 1 or 2 government contracts, may have a heads up about. We feel like maybe they would have some familiarity with this. I hate to play all these conspiracy theories here, but they kind of creep in because when you look at the fact that they were off by several $100 million in terms of what this is going to cost them out of pocket, you still feel like Boeing kind of knew what they were doing. President Trump reportedly really vouched for Boeing with a lot of our allies in terms of trying to throw some of these contracts or try to sway them to go Boeing's way. There were a number of those and working with some foreign policymakers. There was also, we have to remember, later that year, Boeing had a lot of issues with the 737 MAX. Now, this deal was made before that, but after that, one of the reasons that the MAX was not grounded right away was sort of this relationship, or it's rumored, Okay. A little bit of this relationship between Trump and the former CEO of Boeing. So it feels like maybe Boeing knew what they were doing going into this. The CEO did. His name, Dennis, I just had it in front of me here. Muhlenberg. Must have probably had an idea that there was going to be overruns on this, agreed to the fixed cost, made President Trump look good because he slashed $1 billion off of this price tag. Yeah. Understanding down the road, a little bit of quid pro quo could be going on there in terms of helping them out a little bit.
Well, and Jeff, if you remember this specific incidents, I mean, there weren't a lot of times during that administration where we just sat down and were like, this looks good. Because it's like, no, there should be more of this instead of just government contracts that seem bloated. This was like one very specific example where it was like, no, all right. He actually negotiated with the company, got a better rate. And it was, it seemed like a good deal.
Well, and at the time, Boeing, probably even if they knew they were going to eat $300 million, they're like, well, we're Boeing, we're doing okay.
Until they're not.
Fast forward a couple of years, not so much.
Right. Anna, your thoughts on the CEO's sour grapes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you see these types of problems when you have, as Boeing said, these very public negotiations. And this case kind of painted Boeing into a corner and forced them, I think, to make some concessions that perhaps they couldn't afford or, eventually couldn't afford. At the time, maybe they thought they could. But I know like many politicians are trying to do their best to like, get a better deal, retain jobs, retain commerce when they call these companies out publicly. And then it brings kind of a level of local or maybe national scrutiny to the process. I mean, we've seen this happen lots of times. It reminded me of the situation with Carrier Corporation, actually, in 2016, I think, where they were kind of put on blast for trying to move that Indiana plant to Mexico. And Trump and Pence brokered some kind of deal that I think like the move was probably based on actual business decisions and accounting and stuff. But this deal just sort of, I think, was enough to satisfy the public to take the spotlight off. And then Carrier was left to kind of deal with that mess, which resulted in terrible morale for their workers, lots of absenteeism, a slow siphoning of jobs away from that plant. In the end, I think they still cut like 1,200 jobs.
Yeah, so, it was all manufacturing, and I think it was just office workers that were left at the end.
Yeah, so I mean, it was still bad, but did we accomplish anything there? I don't know. It's just like, I know everyone wants like these jobs to like stay here, and so do I, but I think we can't take these public companies and like bully them into making a less profitable choice. And then simultaneously expect them to like post record profits and boost our 401ks and get us a return in the stock market. You cannot have it both ways. And the Boeing situation, I think, is similar because it's just a situation where somebody says like, I think that we should be getting a better deal here. I'm going to make that happen. I'm going to shove it through. And in the end, what are the impacts of that type of behavior, and I'm not targeting Trump here because every politician does it, locally, nationally, like
they need the clip with the logo in the background, them at the podium, the workers surrounding them. They really don't even need to say anything. They just need that video clip to show
that they saved something or fixed something or solved a problem. But like the reason that these problems exist is because, they're looking at their balance sheets and trying to figure out how to cut costs and how to create a larger return for their shareholders. Again, we cannot have both of those things. We cannot say we need you to do X, Y, and Z, keep all these jobs here, even though they're going to cost you more. By the way, don't let it impact our returns, you know?
Well, in talking about it impacting the returns, Jeff, you had kind of mentioned it, but so these comments were said during a first quarter earnings report. The company lost $1.2 billion last quarter and took a $660 million write-down just for Air Force One. The White House, back at the time said the deal would save taxpayers more than $1.4 billion. And not only were they not wrong, I mean, this is actually a moment of light during that presidency that we talked about. And I mean, if they already took a $660 million write-down, I mean, it looks like maybe they might hit that $1.4 billion that maybe the taxpayers could have been on the hook for. I don't know.
Well, and the one thing I was thinking about too, looking at this, who else was going to do this?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Airbus is their biggest competitor.
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to go to Airbus. You're not going to do a foreign company to build Air Force One. So then you're probably looking at like Lockheed is the next nearest competitor. Do you really think Boeing and Lockheed are going to be $1 billion apart on their contract offer? So it just, again, I think it just goes back to the fact that Boeing thought they could eat this. Yeah. Things have changed dramatically in the last 4 years, and now they're in trouble and they're backpedaling.
And they promised to deliver these planes by December 2024. So, I mean...
Well, and the other kind of the thing that's really too bad is we did a lot of coverage when this contract was announced and talking about everything Boeing was going to do. These planes are going to be an amazing... an engineering feat, what they're going to actually accomplish with these planes. But what's going to be remembered, they went over cost.
They went over cost, but also, didn't you, you got the preview, you got to preview what the new tech going into Air Force One was. And it just, I mean, maybe that's how Boeing can spin it.
Yeah.
In the public eye, anyways. I don't know if they can show the episode to shareholders and they'll be happy. No, but look at all the shiny things.
Yeah.
They're going to bounce back. Yeah. I mean, it's Boeing. Okay. I mean, they've got lots of things.
Too big to fail, says Jeff.
They've got a couple of things going for them. So I think they'll be all right. But it just looks bad now. And I mean, let's be honest, this guy is in a little bit of self-preservation mode too.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's, you got to maybe change the tone of the call on that.
Could you imagine being on those earnings calls? I just it makes me sweat thinking about that.
Well,
I just, horrible.
When you have the first question and you're like, sorry, was that with a B? Was that a billion? Yeah. Rough.
Yikes.
All right. Well, our next most popular story this week, the world's largest concrete 3D printer. GE recently unveiled a new facility outside of Rochester, New York. The R&D Center is the first of its kind in the U.S., and it includes a 3D concrete printer that is 3 stories tall and capable of printing more than 10 tons of concrete per hour. The facility will have 20 employees who will optimize the tech before it's rolled out into the field, hopefully within 5 years. GE wants to print concrete bases for wind turbines. Now, these bases stand about 65 feet tall and would be printed on location. Right now, they are sometimes hauled hundreds, even thousands of miles to the destination. Anna Kobod is GE's construction 3D printing partner, and they said the machine was less a 3D printer than a multifunctional construction robot. It is stories like this, Anna, that just blow my mind. And when we talk about logistical challenges and finding new solutions, this one is incredible.
I agree. It's a really significant development in wind, especially considering the transportation costs and the environmental impact that comes from all the transportation required here. So like outside of the general boost that this will offer the wind industry, like it's really an environmental win. And, as you mentioned, these turbines are absolutely massive. It's hard to even register the scope of these until I went to a turbine plant once and just you can stand, and it's like you're inside a building, Yeah. So it's not like you can just throw like a dozen of these in the back of a semi truck, like these are being strapped down to the back of a trailer one by one. Sometimes they need trains and then trucks to get them. Sometimes, as you said, they're going thousands of miles. There's really a limited number of US based facilities that even make these. So, to have them be produced on site is just a massive win in terms of energy cost. I read recently that the demand for wind energy components has actually exceeded the ability to transport them. So there's obviously a bottleneck there. And, now probably more than ever. So it solves a lot of problems. It takes away a fuel burden. It takes away the burden of needing these drivers. To take them sometimes thousands of miles. So, if they can get this thing off the ground and it works, I think it's a big win.
Jeff, Anna talks about thinking about the scale, and I just have to remind myself, it's our office building times 2 that are the bases required to hold these turbines.
It's crazy.
No, it's crazy. I mean, we did a story not too long ago. Wasn't it a semi-trailer? It was a huge accident hauling the wind turbines.
Yeah.
Took out some people, delayed traffic for like a day, I think, just trying because it was a railroad crossing. And just the geometry of it was pretty challenging.
The moral of that story was if you're transporting a turbine blade, don't try to gun it in front of a train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's right. The train hit the semi-trailer.
Yeah.
That's right. Bad stuff. So eliminating those types of things, this is amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think it was good. I took a little bit, I wasn't bothered by it, but it's not really 3D printing, right? It's more like an automated way of laying concrete.
Yeah, no, it's they're using 3D printing, additive manufacturing, because it is, you're building it layer by layer with traditional gantry system like you would see in a 3D printer. Yeah.
So, I mean, you're still building the forms in a traditional method, but it can lay it quicker and it cures more quickly, which is obviously you can get something done faster. That's always better.
Mhm.
No, it's an amazing technology. The scale of this is incredible. To be able to do more of that on site and eliminate a lot of those logistical costs, safety concerns is obviously a huge win. What's interesting too is I started looking at more about wind energy.
Mhm.
I was surprised. I did not realize it's between 8 and 9% of the total electricity generated on an annual basis that goes towards the electrical grid in the US.
Mhm.
I mean, that seems like a really high number.
Yeah.
I did not realize it was that high, but it's also most people look at it as being the fastest growing source of renewable energy.
Mhm.
So obviously wind is sort of one of those that's past the, is this going to work phase?
Mhm.
It does. And if we can make it so that these things are going up higher to collect more air, generate more energy, it's good stuff. So this type of technology is pretty cool. It's also interesting to see GE get involved in some place other than like the rotors and the motors.
Mhm.
They're getting involved now at the very basics, which
Yeah.
is the base of these turbines.
Can I also just say that these 20 jobs are going to be cool? Like, that's going to be a fun job going to every day. Like, what do? I don't know. I work on a 6-story tall 3D printer that prints concrete. What do you do? But I mean, Jeff, the wind turbines and the birds. We got to think of the birds. Anyway.
We sure do.
No, I mean, it's more of a cat problem with
I
the birds.
sure do.
So I wanted to mention that this was funded in part by a grant by the U.S. Department of Energy. And it made me think about how 3D printed construction is becoming a tremendous opportunity. And it doesn't have a lot of players in the market yet. In December, we did a story about Alquist 3D, which was using the same Cobod 3D printer technology to print homes. I was able to talk to Zach Mannheimer, the Alquist founder. And, he said that there's this groundswell around 3D printing construction and still only about 10 companies in the market. Now, I mean, GE is getting behind it. There's going to be less companies in the market. But, this is still an emerging technology that I think scares people because it's so new and they don't understand it. But, in December, we already started handing over the keys to a new house that was 3D printed concrete. And I think that really this could be the future of construction.
Time will tell. I think what's going to be interesting is the cost of savings is great. The time savings is great. The ability to do these things for people who maybe couldn't afford a traditional home right now is fantastic. But where does it go from there? Okay.
Yeah.
Once we get away from sort of these crowdfunded or public service type projects, if you're going to build a house, is that the way you're going to go? Are you going to be worried more about some of the aesthetic limitations that may come across because of 3D printing's limitations?
It's actually, there are more opportunities from an aesthetic point of view because you can do different geometries and kind of similar to how we've seen 3D printing disrupting product development and design because we're creating engine designs that were never possible before with traditional manufacturing. The same will be true for homes.
But a lot of that is based on weight.
Yeah.
Because of the material choices you can make there. So I think it's going to be interesting when you get into a home where you still, there's a reassuring element to seeing somebody up there, a human being actually in charge of putting stuff together.
There's a human being in charge. He has to push the button. He built the CAD.
We got two of those guys over there. You feel better about things?
Button pushers.
Our producers, Eric and Alex, are hard at work during this live stream, and they're going to be hard at work afterwards in post-production because of the 3 to 4 intros I butchered before we got it right.
That's a lot of buttons to
That's
push.
right.
Yeah.
They work really hard to try and salvage the pieces I leave them.
That's true.
All right.
Fair enough.
True of all of us.
Our next most popular story. Elon Musk says Tesla's robot to soon outvalue its cars. According to Tesla's outspoken CEO, Elon Musk, vehicles might not be the company's best seller for long. In an earnings call, the new owner of Twitter said Tesla's humanoid robot could be more valuable than Tesla's car business by next year. The robot stands 5'8" and is named Optimus, so obviously the first one was named Prime. Tesla first unveiled Optimus in August of 2021, though the big reveal was largely panned because the robot was actually a person in a spandex suit. And
That
So the robot was not actually a robot.
Not a robot.
Not a very convincing one. We're going to sell
ballsy
these.
move.
I mean, actually, if you could sell robots that were really just people with their faces covered in spandex, you're probably getting around a lot of labor laws. Anyway, Musk says the bot is best designed for boring, repetitive tasks like grocery shopping. It will likely run on Tesla's neural networks and Dojo Advanced supercomputer. According to Musk, quote, the importance of Optimus will become apparent in the coming years. Those who are insightful or listening carefully, will understand that Optimus will ultimately be worth more than the car business, worth more than full self-driving. Still, Anna, skeptics remain unsure that this project is real, and it's probably because of the person in the robot suit.
Yeah, apparently that means I'm not insightful looking or listening carefully, but this is more Elon Musk bluster, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously we haven't seen a real prototype of this thing, so next year, the person in the robot suit is going to be worth more than your multi-billion-dollar auto company that's posted record sales in the past few quarters. Okay, that's what we're to believe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
You don't see it?
No, I mean, I agree that the market for cobots is immense. And if you look at the numbers, like it's growing very rapidly. But we are not even close to that level of market adoption where this could be a reality in 2023. That, like he's saying, like for context, the cobot market is this is the entire market, was worth like $300 million in 2018. And it's growing very quickly. It's projected to reach a value of $9.7 billion by 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Tesla has a market cap more than $900 billion. That's 10 times the amount of the entire market in 3 years, not 1 year.
Yeah.
So also, I think like cobots are primarily being used now in B2B applications. There's not very much consumer use of this technology right now. And he's already said that that's what his target is for this product.
Yeah, it was an odd choice to talk about grocery shopping.
It really was. And to me, that's just like a very small slice of the pie at this point. I think it's going to be a long, long, long time before we're there for this consumer type of application. And we know that he exaggerates. So it's like just another day reading the story. Just like, oh, all right.
Yep. Musk is pulling into exaggeration station again.
Yeah. Thanks for the press conference, bud. But I just don't see it. So
no, it's and cobots. See, I like the opportunity of cobots because those are the robots that are working side by side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like where he's talking, this prototype, Optimus, is meant to be the humanoid robot that will fill that gap in the workforce.
But it's not, he didn't use workforce.
Yeah, he did.
applications.
Exactly.
No, I know.
Like,
but I mean, I know he's using grocery shopping applications, but I mean, really, if he has that aggressive of an expectation, that has to be what he's thinking.
I think this is a veiled warning that he's going to devalue Tesla to the point where he can just buy it all himself. You know?
Okay, Jeff.
Yeah. It's not going to be building this other business. He's just going to scale back Tesla.
Interesting
Tesla
take.
sucks. It's not even worth what this person in a robot suit is worth.
Exactly. No, I don't know. When I read this, it just made me feel like he is so far removed from the everyday life of a normal person to point out something like grocery shopping, which, I mean, it's not something I enjoy doing, but I don't want a robot doing that at any point. That's not something that's of interest to me. I mean, I'm sure to Elon Musk, purchasing and absorbing food is just some annoying task that he has to do.
Yeah.
I bet
to
he
get away
thinks
from his 20-hour workday. I mean,
he might not even eat. He just has an
Soylent,
IV going.
I bet.
yeah.
We should find out.
He's like a protein puree guy.
Now, if they had a robot that could fold laundry, my wife would probably make me buy one of these.
Mhm.
Okay. Use something practical.
Yeah.
But that isn't what he pointed out. Again, no industrial application here, which is when we talk about cobots, that's what we're looking at here.
Yeah.
If he would have used that in terms of how he's going to even make Tesla more efficient with the use of this robotics, that makes more sense. Lowering potentially the production costs and then the end cost of his cars.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems, I don't know, he's saying something just to say something, which hasn't he got enough notoriety lately for spending way too much on a social media platform?
Yeah, it feels very off the cuff, doesn't it? Like
Yeah,
just
just ridiculous.
You did not put any research into that projection at all, right?
Yeah. And it wasn't a purchase, Jeff. It's a revolution. Anyway, no, he shouldn't have said grocery shopping. He should have said machine tending and assembly. And then it would have been more realistic.
I think that was intentional, though.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to be like, I've reshaped driving.
Yeah.
I'm going to get into your house now.
Yeah. No, I mean, that was my biggest thing. Like, has no one seen The Mitchells versus the Machines? And if you haven't, I highly recommend it because he is just building to this guy where he debuts these robots and all of a sudden, wouldn't you believe it, something goes awry. And just also a reminder to don't leave home without your Robertson screwdriver. That's just for those of you who know. And if you don't know, you need to find out so you know.
It's a very niche reference, I think.
It is not. Oh my God. If you have not watched this, you will enjoy it. So
I have not.
Watch it this weekend, please. That's my final thought. I'm laying it down now. Approved. Yes. Eric approved. Now,
all right.
Also, so the other thing that troubled me is that you're going to have Tesla's robot running on Tesla's brain, living your life for you. And at least you're going to be able to complain about it on Tesla's social media platform.
Oh man, this is so dystopian.
It is. It is.
Boy.
But
there's it.
Maybe it'll be fine. As long as you have your Robertson screwdriver. Then you'll save the day.
Because you'll have through Neuralink, you'll have Musk's conscious, just like in perpetuity. Just forever. He'll be there guiding everything.
That's, I mean, honestly, that was the most troubling thing for me is that it's going to run on their central supercomputer that's running on their neural network. I mean, it is. It's also got a little bit of iRobot in there too. You know,
guys, let's just move to space.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wait,
he owns space too.
Nothing is safe.
It's not going to be called the Moon and Mars anymore. It's just going to be called like Musk Prime and Bezos 2. All right. Our next most popular story this week: Datsun revival fails. Car brand officially dies. In May 2020, Nissan quietly announced that its Datsun brand would soon meet its maker. The brand has been around since 1931, but its heyday came in the 1960s. In 1986, it was discontinued, but was revitalized in 2012 as Nissan's low-cost entry for emerging markets. The last 10 years have been a little rocky for Nissan. You may not have heard, but the company's former CEO got into a touch of trouble and had to flee the country. Now that Nissan's new execs are picking up the pieces, Datsun appears to be the odd brand out. The Datsun's last remaining plant in Chennai, India, recently wound down production of the Datsun Ready-Go 5-door subcompact. Jeff, has the Datsun run out of lives?
Yes. Yes, it has, David.
Unequivocal.
Oh, man.
And it's interesting. If you ever look at Datsun's history, it's incredibly interesting. Actually, this company goes back to before World War I.
Mm-hmm.
They were really sort of got going. There's a lot of similarities to Henry Ford in terms of what they did from a production perspective. Even from a vehicle design, they had a 3-wheeled vehicle out, 100 years ago. And from there, I think they were really able to carve a niche because it was one of Japan's first car companies. Mm-hmm. And when I started reading this, I started thinking a lot about Indian motorcycles here in the US. Oh, yeah. Indian's been a brand that people have tried to bring back over and over and over again. And they finally figured out a way to do it. But a lot of that was by capturing the US market. Mm-hmm. Okay. What Datsun has kind of evolved into is a low-cost leader in other countries, not Japan. India is probably the most primary market for it, the biggest market for Datsun right now. So I think when you're looking at more competition from less expensive vehicles, the EV thing really going strong right now with a lot of people putting out lower cost EV vehicles and smaller vehicles as well. It's pretty tough to compete, especially when you don't have that hometown bias going for you, because even though they were originated in Japan, that's not a real popular vehicle there now. So I think when you look at all of those different market factors, yeah, I think it's about time. And it's too bad. Datsun's, when you look at what they were in their heyday in the 60s and 70s, essentially what they did is wherever the US tried to put like a line on a car where it came to like the fins in the 50s or even some of the headlights and some of the grills and stuff kind of came to a sharp point.
Oh, yeah.
Datsun just rounded them off. And it gave you a really kind of cool, different spin on some of these vehicles. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it's just sort of run its course a little bit. And I think this is the last go around for them.
Well, I throw a lot of leaf shade out there. So maybe this is a good point for Nissan to maybe pivot from the Leaf, the EV Datsun, Anna.
It's if anything, that would be the option, I guess. I don't know. I kind of agree with Jeff. I think this might actually be the end of the road here. It's an interesting situation because I think it's easy to blame Nissan for this, like most notably Carlos Ghosn, who spearheaded this Datsun relaunch. And then as auto visionaries often do, he was arrested for some white collar crimes and then fled Japan for asylum in Lebanon, stuffed into an instrument case. Like very common scenario.
Always happens.
Yes, it's just standard stuff. So Nissan's new executive team had like obviously a lot to clean up during that very abrupt transition. And that preceded the pandemic, but not by much. So they've been trying to get Nissan out of the red and back on track. And they've had a lot of variables that have been challenging, right? Mm-hmm. So Datsun was sort of an ancillary product. It's in non-core markets. It's a non-core brand. So Nissan feeling like they needed to streamline, that kind of makes sense. I think maybe in any other auto market, somebody might roll the dice and try to pick this up just because the brand is so well known. But unfortunately, Datsun, unless it were reworked as an electric, but everybody's got so many electrics kind of in the hopper right now. It's too small and it's too specialized. And auto companies have too many other problems right now, I think, to like grab a brand that they could really only sell maybe in an emerging market. I just think it's too big of a gamble. And so, you know, while we could blame Nissan and Carlos for Datsun going dark, I think the auto industry is just in a tough place right now. Lots of car makers are making their own tough decisions. It's just a hard place to be. So
I'm gonna be the outlier here and say I don't think the Datsun's done. I mean, it might not be for a while. I mean, it paused for how long was the last one? It was 86 to 2012. So I mean, I've got a window here of at least 30 years before it could come back as an EV. You know, maybe once they get the EV chassis right and we're just swapping in.
What about the Datsun brand? Do you think just emanates this intense amount of loyalty and passion?
It's no, it's like a couple weeks ago when I was talking about how there's going to be an EV Gremlin.
Okay, with the Gremlin, I think and again, you're talking about a U.S. vehicle.
Oh yeah, no, I'm talking about the U.S. market only. Yeah.
Yep. Ooh, I think that's tough, man.
Yeah, remember the Saab and like how many times that was tried to be like revitalized and they're just like breathing air back into this dead horse and just never, I don't know.
I mean, that's a Saab though. No one wants that.
All right. I mean,
I just looked up a little bit of history on it because Jeff, to your point, it originally dates back to 1914 and it was originally called the Dot, which I found interesting because that translates to dashing off like a startled rabbit. And I was like,
fantastic.
All right, not bad.
You can do worse.
Got a little giddy up. But then it was briefly changed to Datsun, S-O-N, to mean, if you can believe it, the son of the dot in 1930. And then the U was introduced 3 years later. And also, Nolan Beilstein brought up the really interesting piece of trivia that this was also the car that Chris McCandless drove his yellow Datsun and then abandoned in Lake Mead National Park. And I was, when we were talking about this story in the office, everyone's talking about the automotive market. Then it's like, quality ad, Nolan. Quality ad. But it was yellow.
Yeah.
Quality. I love the book too. All right. Our most popular story this week. 8 killed in clash at Mexican cement plant. At least 11 people were injured and 8 people were killed when rival groups of workers clashed at a cement plant in central Mexico. The fight was over control of the cement plant near Tula, Hidalgo. The violence has spanned more than a decade and comes from within the employees' cooperative that owns both the cement plant and one of Mexico's top soccer teams. The governor condemned the violence, and 9 suspects have been arrested so far. This clash is part of a long-running leadership dispute at the co-op and stems from bad leadership. Former co-op leader Guillermo Alvarez, now a fugitive, allegedly misspent co-op funds. Still, his supporters apparently retained control of some assets, including this factory. Up to 200 people were involved in the assault. The group opposing the old leadership denied responsibility, saying they only use legal channels to try and recover control of the facility. So, Jeff, then who was fighting? This just really reminded me of some like old school, I don't want to say, it made me think of like union violence, like old school, but really back in time. But what was your thought on it?
Well, I'll say this. I don't want to make light of the fact that 8 people died here, but if you'd have asked me when this happened, there is no part of me that would have said last week.
Oh yeah.
This sounds like something that happened like you were talking about 80 years ago when there were all union clashes or longer ago. This seems like something that'd be part of a podcast or a movie where people brought up this, hey, did you know this happened this one time a long time ago? To see that this happened now is crazy. And also, looked at this part of Mexico. This is actually one of the like safer parts of the country right now. This is not
kind of
due
central
to
Mexico.
drug cartels or anything else. It's just, I don't know if it's because it is a little bit more isolated and this plant then becomes such an important part of the community, of the economic development of what's going on there, that people are this over the top in terms of going after things. Maybe there is more local police corruption or something that allows this former guy who stole all this money to run his soccer team to allow that to persist. But it's just kind of mind blowing that this type of situation in modern day in Mexico is allowed to take place and still happen, and that people sort of have to resort to these types of actions to get any type of movement, because that's what it feels like. This guy was put up on charges how long ago? Don't remember exactly, but it's not like it was yesterday.
No. It was, it's been a decade, I think, since he was like in control. And he actually he was using the soccer team to launder some of his illegal funds. He was actually saying that he was paying the players higher bonuses and I guess just like pocketing it or paying them more. Anna, have you seen the photos of the burned out cars? I just, you read about it, you read about the story and you hear it, 5 trucks were destroyed. But I mean, these are like semi trucks that were completely trashed, cars that were, burned out completely on the scene. It looks like a mini war happened at this factory.
Yeah. And it's very hard to understand the relationship here. The soccer club, which is called Cruz Azul, is apparently quite popular in Mexico. It's like the 3rd most popular soccer team. And it started with a fan base primarily comprised of cement workers, and developed kind of a more varied fan base over time. But their first nickname was actually Cementaros, which is cementers, basically.
Right on.
So these two organizations are very firmly tied, right? And it seems like some of the soccer club business is kind of spilling over into the cement operations, unfortunately, for this plant and its workers. According to the Mexico News Daily, the Cruz Azul Cooperative condemned the violence and said it has taken legal action. The cooperative also reportedly pointed to one group leader saying that he had allowed access to groups of outside vandals and they had attacked workers and placed them at risk before. So just a terrible situation for these workers and potentially an incentive to disassociate these two firms, because if you want the cement plant to make money, which I assume you do, whatever its relationship with the soccer club is causing a lot of drama and clearly violence. So I don't know, but I guess I don't see that happening. It sounds like they've been tied for too long, and who's going to give up control? Nobody. So
this kind of reminded me of like rival firms, soccer firms in the UK, where it's just like
hooliganism.
Hooliganism. And why are you still fighting? This happened at 5 a.m. on Wednesday. Can you believe? I mean, you show up to work 5 a.m. on Wednesday, and all of a sudden 200 people are trying to burn it down and run you out. The plant is 55 miles north of Mexico City. And not only did they set several vehicles on fire, but they also cut the electricity to the plant. Yeah. That is crazy.
It's like a military tactic. And the one thing, too, when you think about this, we look at a lot of nearshoring that's going on right now. Mexico is an extremely popular target in terms of getting to the U.S. market with keeping your labor costs low. These types of headlines, I mean, you've got to be people have got to be thinking twice about the geography in Mexico that they're going to evaluate for these types of plants.
And so these two rival groups, one is led by Federico Sarabia, and another is led by Jose Antonio Marin. And these two groups have been linked to more than 30 investigations into different crimes related to the conflict, but specifically between the two groups, which is, I guess, what sort of made me think of hooliganism, because it sounds like there's just a lot of frequent violence, but mostly tied to each other. Either way, it just sounds like a bad situation. And I don't even know, like you said, I don't know how they get out of it.
Right. And it's probably a massive asset at hand here that needs to survive for a lot of people's sake. So something needs to be figured out here.
All right. Well, before we move on to In Case You Missed It, we have another word from our sponsor.
Oil Eater's household cleaners, industrial cleaners, and industrial equipment are specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used throughout the world. Our safe water-based formula dissolves grease and grime for almost any surface and leaves a fresh, non-chemical scent. Our ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used on shop floors, in parts washers, to clean equipment, and more. VOC compliant, Oil Eater will do an excellent job in a multitude of applications, safely and cost-effectively, while reducing your chemical usage. Safe for the user, safe for the surfaces being cleaned, and safe for the environment. For more information, visit oileater.com or call 800-528-0334.
All right, and we're back with In Case You Missed It, the stories that maybe weren't as popular on the site, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. And before we get rolling with that, just a reminder that if you want to get that free sample of Oil Eater, you can click the link below in the body copy, get yourself a free sample. All right, in case you missed it, I guess I'll go first this week. I had another interesting hiring event from Lockheed that I wanted to share. So Lockheed is going to host another same-day hiring event, this time in Georgia. On May 4th, 2022, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., Lockheed is going to be at Kennesaw State University in Marietta, Georgia, to conduct interviews and make same-day hiring decisions. The company is looking for structures mechanics, coders, painters, electrical and electronics mechanics to work in production hourly positions for the Super Hercules and the F-31 or F-35 center wing aircraft that have a growing backlog. The company is looking to fill nearly 200 positions, and the new hires could receive up to a $15,000 signing bonus. Now, this is not the same premium as Lockheed's hiring event in March that offered up to $50,000 signing bonuses. Still, I want more of this. I understand that it's also a symptom of the desperation for labor, but, people are getting more competitive. We actually heard, today we heard about Amazon attributing a lot of its losses due to increased costs in labor. And I like to shine a light on more stories like this. So I'll continue to share them as you continue to send them to me. Even if you're hiring one person and you want us to promote it, we'd like to promote, people that are looking for jobs out there and kind of getting aggressive when it comes to the competitive labor market.
Definitely. Well,
go ahead.
Hopefully this continues to leave a sheen on the idea of manufacturing jobs as being good jobs, maybe family wage jobs. As the rates start to go up, people are going to remember this stuff. Oh, I saw in aerospace, they're paying a lot, let's look at that.
Yeah. No, I agree. Whereas before, it was a bigger number, $50,000, but it was Lockheed Skunk Works. So that was sort of cutting edge technology, engineering jobs. I mean, Jeff, we're talking about mechanics and painters here.
I think it's great. It actually reminds me of being when I was in the Army, re-enlistment bonuses were going up exponentially as you increased in rank. I mean, I think the last one I could have signed would have been for about $15,000. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think it is. And obviously Lockheed's got a lot of experience in working in the military side. Maybe they have a little bit of influence, in some of the partners that they worked with there and seeing how that has worked and in drawing in the right people. And I think it can only help really the industry as a whole in terms of drawing in the most qualified people, the people with the most interest in it. And even if it's not Lockheed for them, at least it's giving them exposure. These applicants giving them exposure to this industry, and maybe something else can work down the road too.
No, and Anna, you're right. Their manufacturing industry has been doing a lot to sort of reposition itself as a good job. But you can try and take away all the stereotypes about it being dirty, hard labor and promote the new, cleaner facilities that are safer. I mean, money talks. And,
it does.
I think Lockheed is using it to make a big statement.
It'll be interesting down the road if they would release results on how effective these recruitment tools work.
And retention as well. Yeah.
No, that was definitely, as part of my job, I should have followed up on that. Okay, note to do that this week. Follow up on success. All right.
Their response? Good.
It was good.
Good.
We signed some checks. All right. Jeff, what is your In Case You Missed It this week?
So I love stories where we look at something and we're using technology to make something we have even better and eliminate waste in the process. And the story that we ran about using disposable masks to make disposable masks to make stronger concrete. I'll get there.
Yeah, all right. There we go.
You did it.
So basically what they've found is, first of all, and I had no idea, but the production of cement is actually extremely, emits a lot of carbon during the process. I had no idea. According to the article, as much as 8% of global carbon emissions stem from the production of cement, which is kind of crazy. And a lot of times what they'll do to make the concrete stronger is they will put microfibers within it. So you need less concrete, which means it reduces the amount of those emissions being emitted, and you've got a better product. Well, what they've found is a lot of the microfibers in the masks, especially like the single-use masks, they do have to go through somewhat of a treatment process, but they can then use those masks and put them right into the cement mix to make a better concrete product. Now, we look at the amount of building that's going on, the amount of infrastructure improvements that we're looking to make all over the place, around the world. When you look at something that can be something that we have right now that basically is something that doesn't break down very well, so it becomes an issue in terms of the disposal and the waste stream, we can take that product, putting it into something we need to make it better. I think it's a great deal.
Did they talk at all about how they would collect them?
That's my question too.
Well, I think it's a work in progress.
No, I get it. I
think you're right. You would need some sort of mass collection process. Doesn't seem like it'd be too tough, and maybe working with medical facilities or other places where you find the one use. I mean, almost every retail location. Yeah.
I mean, anytime we've found a way to recycle a product, we've found good ways to collect it, So, I mean, I don't see it as, finding, mass collection receptacles. I could see that being pretty easy undertaking. But one thing that I wanted to, that, I kind of thought about mentioning earlier with the 3D printed concrete was how that's the biggest issue with that emerging industry is that, a lot of these people are forward thinking and they wanted to make less of a footprint. And so they've been talking about going to hempcrete because it is stronger because of the fiber that you were talking about. And, I think I like stories like this is great because it's upcycling something waste to create a better product, like you said. But it also makes people look at other alternatives in the market because concrete might not be the best long-term solution. I don't know. Yeah.
I saw someone throw a disposable mask out their car window the other day. Is that how you're supposed to
grab it?
What
Get it to these guys.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, no, it's so I'm pretty sure that we'll just take, some sort of prisoners, send them down our highways collecting only masks.
Yep. Just mine the gutters for disposed masks.
It could have, did you see them throw it?
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay, because I will say you remember the first time that you kind of open your windows when it's a nice day?
And then you have one on the dash and it just flies out.
She just goes. It's like how if you don't know that you had that sort of plastic grocery bag in the back and you're just like, what is that? Whoa! Same thing. We lost all the masks right off the shifter. I was just like, nice day. Let's open them up, boys.
That's really enjoying nature. Ah! And you just killed a bird.
Yeah, the boys in the background are just like, Dad, the masks. Yeah, they are definitely gone now. Definitely. We are not stopping. I'm a bad person. Sorry about that.
I should say that the research is being done at Washington State University in Pullman, Washington. So just send them there.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right.
Send them to the Northwest. Anna, what is in case you missed it this week?
All right. I chose this story because it's an update from a previous story. So since it's a sequel, I'm going to name it after one of my other favorite sequels, which is The Secret of the Ooze. Does anyone know?
Oh, of course.
Of course you guys do.
Of course, yes. Tell us the secret of the ooze.
I will tell you the secret of the ooze. So in December of 2018, we reported that a horrifying green ooze was dripping onto Interstate 696 in Michigan. It was soon discovered that the ooze was coming from an electroplating plant in Madison Heights, Michigan, and that the situation was really more negligence than accident. Anyone who's familiar with the electroplating process knows that some pretty gnarly chemicals are used, and you have to be very careful with how you discharge the massive amounts of wastewater. It has to be handled in a very specific way. And in this case, the owner hand dug a trench in the factory's basement and dumped chemicals there that eventually leached into the ground and contaminated the surrounding area. That is not how you dispose of that waste, just in case anyone needs to hear that.
Good to know.
Yeah. So anyway, this story, it's been announced that after several years and literally millions of dollars it's been spent on cleaning up this site, the plant itself will be demolished finally at a cost of about $700,000, which is going to be paid by two specific grants from a county and state agency. So thank you, taxpayers, for that. The owner of the plant was sentenced to a year in prison in 2019 and ordered to pay $1.4 million in restitution, which ultimately was actually a fraction of what it has cost so far to clean this up.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, just a year in prison to poison an entire community.
Geez, come on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we talk a lot about, regulatory burdens on manufacturing. And then I don't know, but when you see stuff like this, it's clear that there are bad actors flying under the radar like every day.
Mm-hmm.
And even when they get caught, they can't undo or really pay back the damage in some cases that they've caused. So it will be good to get this eyesore down, allow the community to kind of move on from this situation where their environment was like taken advantage of so this person could profit.
See, he should not go to jail. Maybe fine him, but he should be cleaning everything up that he did. Whatever he need, whatever can be done. I don't care how like minute it is. He should be out there with a shovel every day until he cannot physically lift the shovel anymore, cleaning up all the crap he did. I mean,
don't get me wrong. I'm all down with that sentence, but I feel like at least we get him in the slammer for a year as a result. And
then put him back in the ooze.
Yeah, put him back in the... See, that's the biggest thing that was the loss here. We just needed a group of teenage vigilantes, and this sort of thing never would have happened.
With ninja skills?
Exactly.
Ninja skills are at least, some modest detective skills to get to the bottom of this a little quicker.
And like a reporter, like just a crack
sage
reporter.
old advisor.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Maybe not like the same type of person.
Yeah.
But just...
And then maybe like a rough and tumble type that sort of helps every once in a while, but maybe he's not a nice guy.
Okay.
Yeah,
you guys remember Krang? What was that about?
Yeah. Or maybe just some sort of extraterrestrial brain that lived in the stomach of a robot.
Right.
Everything about the story was completely plausible up until that point. That's when kids were like, oh, this jumped a shark.
Yeah.
Like a brain in a robot's stomach, please.
That's too far for a step too far.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Plus, also, I'm going to say it, the worst toy in that entire line where they made every type of animal into an action figure and, dressed the turtles in any possible attire they could. The Krang toy, garbage. Garbage. Because it did the same thing that it did in the show where it's just like,
wow.
It just kind of stood to the side and it's like, yeah, that's a bad guy. Yeah, knock him over. It's done.
Of all the things we've talked about ever in this podcast, this is the most passionate I've ever seen you.
I mean, I've got a lot of passion.
For toys. You definitely do have a lot of toy passion.
I mean, I do. I mean, when it comes to turtles, though, that's all about producer Eric. We'll let him share that story sometime. All right. Let's move on to our final thoughts this week. Anna, what's your final thought?
Okay, so this week seeing like Netflix have like a terrible quarter and subscribers are fleeing sort of emboldened me to also pledge to cancel Netflix. Not for anything against Netflix. I just don't really use it that much. So this weekend I'm going to binge everything that I want to before I turn it off. And I just need some accountability here. So I'm telling you all to check back with me next week and make sure that I do it.
Well, are you watching Ozark?
No, I started, it was just, I liked it, but it was very dark and I just couldn't move forward. So
yeah, too much sadness.
Yeah, too much sadness. And I just can't handle that anymore.
There's got to be some sort of swindler documentary that you can.
I know. Like if there was like a swindler documentary every day that dropped, then maybe $16 a month is worth it to me. But I can't. Not anymore. I'm going to spend that $16 on like a single meal.
Right.
Now that food is so expensive.
And I know exactly where you're going to get that single meal from too. It's definitely going to be Forge Cafe.
I love it though.
So Anna, in your spirit of sequels, I have an update on my fridge debacle.
Ooh,
from
the
last
fridge
week.
sequel. Yep.
Yeah. It turned out that we did get the fridge to fit, and all we had to do was make a gnarly hole in our cabinets and shove it in to make it happen. That's it. Actually, no, I do have to thank my brother-in-law, Grant. He came in, he did it as clean as he could. He's like, it's not pretty. I'm like, it's prettier than I expected.
Did you lose any, like I saw where the fridge was. Did you lose any like hinges on doors or anything like that?
We got lucky where all the hinges happen to be on the other side right there. And so if you open those cabinets, you definitely see fridge, but they're still functional. And I made this mistake. The silverware drawer, you got to hang on to that thing because she's not anchored to anything anymore.
Oh, okay.
It was just like, I'm going to grab All right. Well, we'll learn a lesson. And then I did it again, but I learned it that third time. Third time.
Yep.
Another update. There was a new sign this week.
There was?
There was a new sign in the bathroom.
I didn't know anything about this.
You didn't hear? Okay.
Yeah.
So, there's been some controversy, and which led to the first sign, which was, hey, please stop defecating on the toilet.
Right. Yeah. I heard about that one.
Reasonable request. And he said, he's going to keep on it. Or I'm assuming it's a him, it's a men's bathroom.
It's a men's bathroom.
But the new sign posted this week says, I'm not going to stop posting signs until you stop defecating on the seats.
What is happening there?
It is this person's so angry. And I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like so close to just like sitting on the stairs and watching workers from that company go into the bathroom and be like, I think it's that guy. He looks angry all the time. But it definitely doesn't say defecating. Definitely says a much more vulgar term. Vulgar term. But we're if you're watching the video, maybe we're firing it, maybe it's blurred, maybe it's not. But I just want to continue to thank this person because this sort of drama that is outside my life, but sort of operating, it's great.
You're loving this.
I love every part of it. And I actually love walking upstairs to use that bathroom. And I'm kind of disappointed when he doesn't have a new sign.
This has got to be from the cleaning crew.
I don't think so. No, I don't think the cleaning crew does this because they're working either way. I think that, and also because they were posted in the middle of the day. The last one was posted in the morning-ish.
Weird.
Yeah, it is so good and he's so angry.
David's got like a bulletin board with like all these clues on there, and he's like,
"Are you like smearing pudding on this seat now just to keep this going?"
No, we thought about different retaliation, and we didn't go that route, but we definitely thought about maybe posting signs, in the voice of the toilet, like, you know what? Hey, I don't mind. I'm here anyways. Just like, it's not a me problem. It's a you problem. Don't worry. We'll get through this. I know that it's a lot of final thoughts, but the final thought is that, I was just looking for some white noise in the office, and we recently introduced televisions to the office. And so I like looking for some sort of live sports, and we turned on the Indian Premier League cricket, and it is so captivating. I can't believe I became a fan of cricket in 4 short days. Actually, by day 3, I was in. I was completely in. I know that you guys are on the other side of the office. You haven't been living this revolution.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've gotten to a point with sports where if I don't have some sort of local interest, I have a tough time with it.
I mean, the closest to a local interest that I have in this is like, hey, I think that guy's from Ireland and maybe my wife is too. But no, it's all about the logos, man. Well, it's like you're trying to draw a connection, just like, yeah, right. But no, it's all about the logos.
You do not need a connection. If you like it, you like it.
Yeah,
it's fine.
It is. There's no connection other than it's an incredible sport. And I'm sorry that it took me 40 years to figure that out. I mean, not that I'm going to watch it maybe outside of this tournament, but it is captivating.
I don't know. You guys are really into it.
This is a passing fad.
Yeah, well,
you will forget about this in a month.
I don't know. It depends if there's another tournament, but It has just been fun to kind of have part of the office sort of start watching this as a lark. And then slowly all of us kind of grow to appreciate it and enjoy it. And like, it's been kind of interesting unlocking the puzzle of cricket because we had no idea how anything worked. It's just like, what's an over? Well, it's actually a series of 6 pitches.
All right.
Sorry, that's a lot of final thoughts. But Jeff, let's jump into yours.
You've really absorbed all the final thoughts time that we have. So I'm just going to go right to the trivia.
Come on.
Good job to Chuck and Mark last week, who did get the question correct. Just to refresh your memories, we were talking about unexploded ordnance, just following up to Anna's story about the hand grenade found in the potato factory. So the different types of ordnance, if you were going to report them, the options you were given was dropped, projected, thrown, launched, or placed. Launched is not one of your options. So we did have a fair amount of feedback. Thanks for everybody who responded, but Chuck and Mark were the ones who got it right.
Is this the Mark that is crushing it every week?
He does very well on these. He's the former Boy Scout.
Yeah.
Who, his dad taught him a lot of stuff out of the same manuals, apparently.
Oh, right. Way to go, Chuck and Mark.
All right. Feeding off of the 4 electric vehicle stories we had last week, I was thinking about lining this one up, but we ended up saving it. Also, and this would actually kind of come in handy if you're dealing with any type of electrical burn. Okay. Victim.
Oh,
somebody who suffers from an electrical burn. So if you're a first responder, potentially pulling them out of those EVs or just on the factory floor, unfortunately, if something would happen, what is the one thing you want to make sure does not come in contact with the individual or source of the burn? Okay. So they've got a burn.
Mhm.
Okay. You're removing them from that scene. What do you want to make sure does not come in contact with them or obviously the source of the electricity?
Okay. I think I might actually get one.
There's something you want to make sure does not come in contact.
I might
with
actually
either.
get one this week, but that just means I'm probably light years away, Anna.
As long as you don't say the sun, then
Well, that is true.
You don't want them to
you should
come in
not touch the sun.
No, they nor
Don't
the
touch the sun.
equipment should touch the sun.
Icarus.
It remains truthful.
is that the answer?
Dang it.
Spoilers.
Way to go, David.
We ruined it for Chuck and Mark.
It was an Icarus answer.
Oh, solid. Let's go out on an Icarus note. All right. Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to reach the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, Anna, or David at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily and weekly newsletters and make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. All right. For Jeff Ranke and Anna Wells, I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.